Hi, this is Tina with Sid Happens Dog Training and Behavior in the Potcake Project, and I was on a forum today about fearful and reactive dogs, and the question came up, which is better, fight or flight? My answer is always flight, always, always, always. In the situation that this individual was talking about, she has two dogs. One tends to be more reactive. The other one tends to just avoid a conflict. And so her question was, is teaching the dog that avoids the conflict inadvertently reinforcing the other dog for being a bully? And I would say no, that managing them in such a way as they're getting to the point of the conflict is the problem. So dogs have a huge range of signaling, just like people, right? So I don't have to tell you I'm going to kick your butt. I can more politely say I'd really appreciate it if you just were going to agree to disagree, right? Like, we can be polite about it. So intervening earlier in an interaction is almost always better. You can interrupt a behavior. So often, if I have a case, for example, Marco, our little adolescent, is sometimes pretty determined with the other dogs, right? My old dogs tend to just try to avoid a conflict and just think, he's just a fool, he's a puppy. So I will help them by managing Marco. So that might be that I put Marco on a tether with stuff to chew on and a nice place to lie down and say, now you don't get to relentlessly pursue your brothers, right? Because that's him being pushy. That's him instigating an argument and forcing the more polite, socially appropriate stable dogs to have to kick his tail doesn't help him either. Instead, what happens is they don't interact with him unless he's polite. So if they go to approach him and he's got the crazy eyes on, they just keep walking and go, nope, we're not playing with you today. And so what he starts to learn is he has to exercise self-control. He has to be polite and solicitous, or he doesn't get to interact with the other dogs because they just choose not to do it. So that doesn't reinforce him behaving badly. That reinforces him keeping his marbles in his head and behaving politely. In the case of dogs with severe reactivity, I might want more information to give you better coaching, but generally speaking, removing themselves from the situation is a more ideal answer than allowing them to get into a conflict. Another choice, if you don't want to tether the dog who tends to be more reactive or more determined than the other dog, is to scram the bully dog, right? Not the bully breed, because I don't know what breed she has, but the dog who's being a pest and being pushy, that dog I'm going to move off. I'm going to intervene on the part of the dog who's being polite. So let's say Shorty is asleep on his bed, Marco decides he wants to play, and he goes and he's like, I'm touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, and Shorty's getting annoyed. I'm going to move Marco off because I'm going to reinforce the dog who is being appropriate about signaling and saying, I want you to leave me alone. Now, there is always the argument, and somebody I'm sure will jump on the thread and say, well, what about the dog that's how they solicit play? Sure, each individual situation is going to vary a little bit, but managing the one who's being the bully and teaching that one to listen when the other dog is low level politely signaling is always a better way to go than allowing them to have a conflict, because you want your reactive or pushy dog to learn to listen to the other dog. You want them to learn that communication is asked and answered. It's not all just about them. My guess is, if you think about it, the dog that's pushy with your more easygoing dog also probably doesn't pay all that much attention to your signaling, and they tend to be pretty determined with you as well. So I can totally be wrong, and I'm totally happy to answer more questions. I have like a snippet of information on the thread that I'm doing this post about, but I wanted to speak more in generality, because when you try to talk about social dynamic stuff, just typing it, it's hard to sometimes keep it safe. So, or keep it straight. So one, listen to the whispers and you don't have to hear the screams, right? If I notice that my partner is exhausted and frustrated and say, you know what, we can talk about doing wills later, that's going to avoid a conflict, right? So it's the same thing. It's not teaching the rude dog to be more rude. It's teaching the dog to pay attention to what the more polite dog is signaling. So I hope that helps. This is Tina with Sit Happens Dog Training and Behavior in the Potcake Project. If you have questions, you can feel free to email me. It's tina@sithappens.us. If you want to subscribe to the YouTube page, you totally can. You can also subscribe on Facebook. And I hope this helps. Bye.